It's national meets regional. Welcome to Sidewalks Entertainment, the long-running celebrity, music, and art series. Join us now for an exciting new path to celebrity interviews, music, rising talents, and much, much more.
Our guest today is an entrepreneur and international best-selling author whose books have been translated into more than 30 different languages. We are just thrilled to welcome Lauren Oliver to Sidewalks. Hey, thanks so much for being here today, Lauren.
Thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
So tell me a little bit about yourself and where you're from.
I grew up outside of New York, a suburb of New York, and I've kind of been rotating, mostly orbiting around New York City my whole life. I went to college in Chicago and graduate school for creative writing back in New York at NYU, and I've been here ever since.
So was writing always something that you loved to do, or was it sort of an accidental find?
It was always a big part of my life. My parents are both literature professors, so as you can imagine, I grew up in a house full of books, and for me, writing has always really been an offshoot of my great love for reading, actually. And when I was a kid, the way that I started writing is just I would fall in love with a book after I read it, and it would end, and I would be very disappointed. So I would just keep kind of continuing the story and writing my own sequels to it.
Well, let's talk about your book, Vanishing Girls. What was your inspiration for writing this story?
Well, Vanishing Girls is really the story of two sisters, very close in age, who've been almost inseparable despite their differences until an accident really traumatizes them and causes their relationship to dissolve in certain, or to deteriorate at least. And I've always been interested in sister stories, unsurprisingly, perhaps because I also have a sister. We are fairly close in age, we are very different, but we are very close. And in general, I'm really interested in the way that siblings help us form our own identities, and we kind of grow up in relationship to our siblings and to who they are. And so, Vanishing Girls really grew out of that.
Well, Lauren, this is a psychological thriller, and I'm curious to know if any of the subject matter covered in the book was actually culled from real-life case studies.
Well, yes and no. I mean, definitely all of my books come from my observations of, how people behave in real life. I think that's kind of your job as a writer. And definitely, certainly, the relationship between the two sisters and many of the teen-esque details. The book actually takes place in a place called Fanland, which is a weird, decrepit amusement park. And I worked in a pool club growing up, so different, but I definitely drew from that experience and that was one of the most fun things about writing the book. And then the rest of it, is just from my imagination.
Would you like to see this book sort of go into other additional books, kind of carry the story forward?
I think that this book it's funny because I've written series and I've written standalones. I do feel that this story, because it is the story of the two sisters, and I feel I've resolved their kind of arc by the end of the book. I do think it is self-contained, although, again, I had so much fun writing the world of the book and the world of Fanland, the deteriorating amusement park, that I would consider writing another book just set there, just because it was so fun to visit in my imagination.
Right. Well, you've written books for all different ages, but you seem to have a real affinity for the young adult series. Mm-hmm. What is it that makes sort of writing for this age group so much fun?
Well, I love, first of all, as many people have said, the adolescent years are incredibly intense, and they're really formative. I mean, most people I know can actually recall in much greater detail elements of their adolescent lives than almost at any other period of their lives. And I do think that's because so much of your identity is really formed then. It's the time where you're moving from kind of childhood associations with your parents to really self-identifying and choosing your friend groups and choosing who you want to be. And because as an author I'm very interested in transformation and identity, I think it just makes it a perfect age group for me to write for and about.
Well, and people are going to be very excited to learn that your young adult book, Panic, is going to be made into a feature film, and you have been tapped to write the screenplay. That's very exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you. I actually just turned it in very recently, the script, so I'm really excited.
So what is the difference between writing a book and writing a screenplay? Or how is that process different?
Oh, they're so different, and it's been such an educational experience, and actually that's one of the reasons I really wanted to take it on. As a novelist especially, you know, you always have a set of tools that you fall back on, and some of my favorite kind of tools happen to be, you know, long descriptions of setting and at periods of interiority where the character's thinking and feeling. And of course in a screenplay, you're totally deprived of both of those tools. It's much more, you know, the emphasis is much more structural. It's on scene and dialogue and action and juxtaposition. So I really had to go through a complete training process to learn how to evoke the same feeling, but with a totally different set of tools. It was really fun.
So as we close today, Lauren, what was some of the best literary advice you were ever given when you kind of were first starting out? Because that's one of the things we like to do here on Sidewalks is when we have experts such as yourselves visiting, we'd like to try to get that from you. So I'd like to hear what kind of advice you were given.
You know, my advice is really simplistic and very boring. I think I'm going to have to start making something up. I would love to be able to say, you know, go into the woods with a set of pig's blood and 2 sticks on the ground. But really, honestly, the best advice I was ever given about writing is that, you know, just daily practice, the discipline of it. Writing, like anything else, is something that really improves. Your ability improves with time. So you know, I think I was told to practice every day, even if I was only practicing for a little bit, and I really did follow that advice. And as a result, you know, you don't even have to have very much natural talent. I don't think I did. But after daily practice for over 20 years, you get very good at something.
That's right. Lauren, thank you so much for being with us today on Sidewalks. It was just a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
For more full-length celebrity interviews, visit sidewalkstv.com.